think mine diving for me is way more interesting in a way because of this. It has this man-made brain kind of behind it, It's infinitely more complicated, I think. Because of this, there's kind of no logic sometimes behind how it is. Caves are formed by, geography or whatever. It's a natural process. But with mines, sometimes it's, sometimes you see, like, of course, there's this tunnel, there's this driveway that leads to a specific place, but then you go into these chambers and there just doesn't seem to be any logic behind it. There's just these tunnels everywhere and there's just holes in the wall, and the navigation it doesn't follow any pattern, and it's insane.
You're listening to Speaking Sidemount, the podcast where we talk all things sidemount and cave diving, from equipment, skills, techniques, and cave diving expeditions to interviews with some of the world's top sidemount and cave divers. Whether you're new to sidemount, been sidemount diving for years, or just want to know more, this is the place for all things sidemount. I'm your host, Steve Davis. Let's get wet. Hey, welcome back to Speaking Sidemount. I'm Steve Davis. This episode is brought to you by our show sponsor, X-Deep, and I just want to take a moment to acknowledge the support of X-Deep, who have been with us since the very beginning of this podcast. It's no small thing for them to do that, and I'm incredibly appreciative of their support, both of this podcast, but I also acknowledge what they do for exploration projects around the world and also the equipment that they produce, which I believe is the very best in the market. I've been diving the X-Deep Stealth equipment since 2013, so more than 12 years now, starting with the X-Deep Stealth Classic, moving on to the X-Deep Stealth 2.0 Tech, and now I dive both the Tech and the Rec, both with my KISS Sidewinder and also open circuit. It's the best equipment in the market, as I said, and it's great to have an equipment manufacturer of the standing of X-Deep supporting this show and supporting sidemount education around the world. I also want to, for this show, acknowledge Insta360. I'm really excited about using the Insta360 cameras to support some of the video work that I'm doing for my Sidemount Pros YouTube channel. And also, I want to take a moment to thank the patrons of Speaking Sidemount, who every month, through a small contribution through Patreon, help to support the production of this show and make everything that you're listening to possible. Now, in this episode, I catch up with Naomi Allen of Koh Tao Divers. Now, of course, Koh Tao should need no introduction. Mikko Paasi is based there. He's the owner of Koh Tao Divers. And of course, you remember him from episode 64, where we covered his involvement in the Thai cave rescue and everything that he's doing in Koh Tao. Now, Naomi's been growing her diving under the mentorship of Mikko over the last few years and has become one of the leading lights in the next generation of technical divers and technical diving instructors. She's been working with Mikko and gaining experience and is now involved in mine exploration projects under Bottom Line Projects there in Thailand. And so I'm really excited to be able to catch up with her and learn more about her background and experience, how she grew her diving working with other great instructors in Thailand, how she's now moving into mine diving exploration. And also we talk a lot about what it takes to become a good sidemount diver and, in fact, a good sidemount instructor. All this and much, much more in this episode of Speaking Sidemount. And we are recording. Hey, Naomi, welcome to Speaking Sidemount.
Hi, Steve. How are you?
I am awesome. And that's a question I have for you as well, because you're based in Koh Tao, an absolutely stunning island in the south of Thailand. You work at Koh Tao Divers, so I'm immediately super jealous of you. But you've just gone through a 36-hour monsoon storm, torrential rain, floods, and anyone who knows Mikko Paasi has probably seen his videos. And I think only he could make evacuating from his home look like an adventure. So how are you guys doing?
We are doing pretty much okay now. It's been a rough few days. That storm, it just hit like this, and it started raining overnight, and it did not let up for, like you said, 36 hours or something like this. And the nature of Koh Tao is it's just this big rock basically in the middle of the ocean, and everything that hits on the top then just runs all the way to the bottom, and all the rivers and everything overflowing. And we had torrential rivers in the street, and like you said, Mikko evacuated his house coming down from the mountain, and he made that look exciting for sure. as he does everything. But yeah, it was rough. We got kind of stranded in places. People were cut off from going home and everything like this. But you know, it took just maybe 12 hours for the community to just come together. We had all the like excavation trucks and everything like this, digging all the sand out from the street. The island actually recovered and went back to normal pretty fast. There's still a little bit of a river where I live. Like we have to cross this crossroads, and that's always the worst part. But now actually it's pretty much normal again. It was just 48 hours of chaos, but now everything is as before, and businesses are open again. It's all good. Yeah.
And I guess it affects the diving somewhat with all that water running off into the ocean surrounding the island.
Yes, the diving right now, to be honest, is not amazing. That is quite normal for this time of year, though. Like in December, every year, it's a little bit of a nightmare. We have this crazy wind that comes from the northeast, and basically, like where all of our dive sites are located, it just wipes out all of them, and they're impossible to dive in because of these giant waves and currents and half a meter of visibility. It's it's not great.
Yeah, I've been there.
Right
We
now.
occasionally get it here in New Zealand, but I remember I worked in Malta for 2 seasons, and towards the end of the season, we would start, which is about November, we'd start to get storms coming through, and the visibility there is normally 30 meters on a bad day. So you have this 30-meter visibility. It's fantastic diving. Not a lot of marine life, but great underwater features. And we dive a wreck site there. It's called the wreck site, and there's 3 wrecks there, and so it's pretty fun going out. And normally it's an easy navigation from the shoreline, swim out 50 meters, and you're on the wrecks. Well, after this massive rainstorm we had, of course, Malta's a rock as well, and it's all red clay, so that all runs off into the water. And so it was not even half a meter; it was like this much. And I went out there with it was myself and Bus Proud went out for a dive, and there was a little bit of waves, so we kind of got in the water in Sidemount, and we videoed us getting in to sort of show a bit of this is what you can do. And then we swam out and we navigated out, and we thought, we can't find the wreck. Then I just looked at Bus, and I thought, he was about like half a meter from me, and I could just see this dark shadow on the other side of him. And I swam towards him, and we put 1 arm length from Bus, and that was the wreck. Like we were effectively on it, and we couldn't see it. And so we went inside the wreck, and it was just so eerie and dark and mysterious. We thoroughly enjoyed the dive, and then we knew which way the coast was, but swam back to the coast, didn't really know where we were, and then we hit the rock again. The rock's this close to you, hit the rock wall, and we're back. So sometimes it can be super interesting, but most of the time I guess not.
It's funny you say that. Like I went yesterday for some diving. I was doing some a deep spec, so I had to get plus 30 something, and because we can't get out to the deep sites because the waves are too high, like so we did the dives on our wrecks closer to land. But yeah, like it was about half a meter of visibility, and I managed to navigate to the wreck. But I don't know, like I actually got like the the most narcosis I've ever had in my life, and I just felt like completely spaced out because I could see this like dark green shadow, and I'm like, I know the wreck is there, but is it? And like you say, like you put your hand out, it's like, okay, yes, that's right. But yeah, it's crazy when it's like that.
Yeah, that is a thing with narcosis too. If it's cold or dark or visors down, you tend to suffer much more worse from it. Yeah. Okay, right. So we've had a bit of an interlude there, but let's get started. I always sort of ask my guests to tell us a little bit about themselves. So share a little bit about you and in particular how you got into diving and also how you came to be in Koh Tao.
So Koh Tao like is a little bit of a cliche in terms of like it has this story where people go and do their open water and advanced and then never leave. And to be honest, I'm 100% part of that cliche.
Yes.
My first time underwater, I think I was maybe 10 or 11. I did a try scuba dive with my father somewhere in Spain, I think. It wasn't really a memorable experience. Like the only thing I really remember was that I was floating around everywhere and I didn't get taught how to equalize or anything like that properly. It didn't really leave a memorable impression on me, particularly. Then I did the classic thing of backpacking. So I came to Thailand for the first time in 2015. Traveled around, came to Koh Tao, had no idea what I was going to do here. Like, I hadn't really researched the island or anything. I just, okay, it seems like a nice place. I'm going to go there. And then turns out there's not much to do really on Koh Tao if you're not diving or partying. So I thought, okay, I'm going to give this a try and see how it is. And
Was
that's
that
it.
the partying or the diving?
Well, both, I think. But no, I was at the end of my trip. So I think the partying I'd already done enough of. So Koh Tao was quite a nice little break from that.
Right.
And again, like, funnily enough, my open water wasn't really that memorable either. Like, I can't remember that much about it. I did my advanced right away, and the only thing I remember about that was that I got horribly lost, ironically, on the navigation
On the
dive. I
nav.
think. Yeah. I had to do that square button, and I completely messed it up and got completely lost. For some reason, I was just let go by myself, like not in a buddy team or anything. I won't say anything more about that, but I just was let go and I messed it up. And then I sat there on the beach, like it hadn't made a really lasting impression on me, but I was like, I got hit by this like real sadness, and it's again another cliche, but I think then I was like, I was crying because I didn't want to leave, and I didn't really understand why until I got home, and I'm like, okay, I need to go back there and do this diving thing because that's the only thing I'm good at the moment. So then, yeah, I went home. I went back to England and earned some money for a few years, and then found a way to come back. And that's it. Yeah, I came back out in 2018. I spent some time as an English teacher because that allowed me to kind of work here and earn money. And then I came back and forwards from Koh Tao doing my dive master and then instructor and all of that stuff, and did my open water instructor back in 2020, mid-pandemic.
Yes.
It was a weird course.
I bet.
We were not allowed any air conditioning. We were not allowed to use swimming pools. And I did my IDC in April, which is the hottest time of the year here. It was, to be honest, horrible. We were like maybe 6 people, and we had to use this like open air restaurant because we weren't allowed inside together. We had to be separate, of course, and no air conditioning, 40 degrees of heat. We had like 2 fans each blasting us in the face. But yeah, that was rough. And that was kind of the beginning of my career, I guess. That was not at Koh Tao Divers though. It was back in Crystal Dive, another big center on the island. Didn't step foot into Koh Tao Divers for, well, until that year actually. It was like October, November of 2020, and I was a brand new instructor, had no idea about anything really. During that time, there was not a huge amount of work. Of course, like the island was kind of open-ish, but there was not a huge amount going on. So I was kind of just sat there like twiddling my thumbs, like what else can I do? I get bored quite fast and I can't just sit still. I can't just sit on my hands. I'm always looking for something else, something new. So that's when I kind of was like, okay, there's this other side of diving that maybe I'm interested in. I'd done my Sidemount course, which I'm sure we'll come back to later, but I did my introduction to Sidemount back then at the same time as my IDC. But then I stepped foot into Koh Tao Divers looking for first person I met was Ivan Karadzic. Probably said that wrong. Sorry if I did. But he was my the first person I met actually in Koh Tao Divers, and he became my first tech instructor. And then I started hanging around there for a while, and then Mikko came back and we met, and then things kind of grew from then. But yeah, that's kind of a little bit of background, I guess.
Awesome.
About how I started.
There's so much in there that I want to unpack with you, and I'll try and remember to hit each point there. But obviously, I mean, one of the things Koh Tao is renowned for is obviously this recreational dive courses. And so you go there for your first dives, maybe your try dives, and then do your open water courses and so on. And also, I guess there's a lot of people like yourself who go through and do IDCs there and become instructors and then either go home or go to other parts of the world. But there is also this really, really strong technical base there in Koh Tao Divers as part of that with a couple of other shops. So I'm really interested in the contrast between sort of what they're doing at Koh Tao Divers and other places there, and why you wanted to get into tech diving.
Yes, I to be honest, like I don't really know why I wanted to get into tech diving. Like I said before, like I was kind of just looking for something else to do. And I kind of thought, after I did my side mount, I was kind of a little bit interested in this. I was like, okay, this is quite a nice way of diving. Like, where can I go with this? And I thought, okay, I've always quite liked to be in deep water. Like, I love to be, 30, 40, 50 plus, whatever. And I was like, okay, I want to do this a little bit more. And I asked my course director at the time, Andrea in Crystal, I said, where can I go for this? She was a tech instructor actually with Paddy, but she said, don't do this with me. Like, if you want to do this, then you should go this way. And she actually then gave me Ivan's contact personally. And then I went into Koh Tao Divers, and I'd never actually heard of the shop before. Actually, I just kind of went into Ivan personally and was like, okay, I got your contact from so and so, and then we sat down and everything started from there. But it was only then I didn't really realize, like, there is quite a lot of tech on Koh Tao, and it's not the easiest place actually to do that. The Gulf of Thailand, you struggle to find around Koh Tao, you struggle to find 45, really. It's not the easiest place to do tech and to teach tech. But it is also because it has so much like recreational diving, like it's so easy just to jump on a boat and go to do your confines, whatever, or to go out to Chumpon Pinnacles, the dive site that we go to get depth. I say depth is 43, and you need a shovel to get any deeper than that. Yeah, I learned a lot from. We have Tim Lawrence here with Davy Jones. We have Andy Campbell, and I've done a lot of diving with Andy as well. Like when I was a brand new tech diver in the middle of the pandemic with not much to do, I went to him because he was running regular tech boats out. Yep. I said, okay, can I just join on whatever you're doing, please? And I was able just to join on. I just joined on his courses, because I just wanted to tech dive. And I learned a lot from him. And there's a lot of tech actually, even though it's a little bit tricky.
Yeah, I get it. And it is a little bit bizarre that way, right? Because normally your big tech diving centers are located around the places that you can do the technical diving, be it cave diving, wreck diving, or whatever. But I am kind of interested a little bit in your side mount journey because, I've got this thing where, a lot of people first expose at the instructor level to side mount through their IDCs and then they end up becoming a side mount instructor because they've done a instructor specialty. And it doesn't tend to be, in my opinion, the best. And I'll use my own experience too. I didn't go down that path. I've used it, completely different. And probably the path that I would recommend. I had a really good side mount course in Mexico, but I then immediately went to Northern California. And so I went from freshwater aluminium cylinders to saltwater, really cold, eventually a dry suit, steel cylinders. They're quite different. As I'm sure you know, and I really was a mess for quite a while, and it took me actually, I would say even more than 200 dives before I really had it nailed. I was getting really good towards the end, but I was teaching myself. There was nothing else around. This is 2013, 14, and I really just iterated until I got it right and just explored. And then it was only really when I turned up at Gozo Technical, and I'd sort of contrast that with, or compare that with what you experienced going to Koh Tao Divers, where I turned up 200 side mount dives and I was pretty good. But then all of a sudden you're hanging out with world-class divers, Tom Steiner, Woodry Cadell, etc., and you see what it really looks like. And I know there's a connection with a few of the Thailand people. Eric Brown actually bought Tom's dive center in Dahab. So there's a connection with all the guys here as well. And so it was quite staggering to me. And the change in my diving over the next, year, let's call it. It was initially 3 months I trained, and then I went back and worked the next year. The change in my diving was staggering. I went from kind of 200 dives and not bad to, 250 dives and getting really, really good. And then by the time I got to 300 side mount dives and so on, it was just like I was becoming like one of them. And so I was just so pleased with that. Was that a similar experience for you at going to Koh Tao Divers?
Absolutely. It's funny that you say, like, I made that exact rookie error. I did my Sidemount course. It wasn't that memorable, particularly. I actually
Hmm.
got taught by someone that was being evaluated to become a Sidemount instructor that did not have that many Sidemount dives. And I learned how to do it, sure,
Hmm.
kind of, yeah. But then I followed the same path, actually. I made that rookie error of having 1 week of Sidemount experience and then going on to do my Sidemount instructor. And I had zero idea at the time, like, what a stupid move that was. Um, and yeah, I didn't have any idea how complicated it is and how many different ways there are to do everything, and how to kind of really find your own way. Luckily, I didn't teach anything for a long time because I realized, like, no, cannot do this yet.
Yeah.
Um, I I actually at the same time got my self-reliant, so my solo diver, and that was a really awesome thing, actually, because what it allowed me to do was to just jump on. Again, we're talking mid-pandemic, like not really much going on, but it allowed me to just jump on any boat that was going out. I was able to rent really cheap boat space, and I had all of my own equipment. I just jumped onto boats. Like, I had like two DIN adapters, and I used to just dive with two yoke tanks. Like, it was ugly as hell, but
Hmm.
I was able to it allowed me to just go and go by myself underwater and just figure all of this stuff out. And then, like, as I previously mentioned, I jumped on a lot of courses with different people around the island. When I went to Koh Tao divers the first time, I didn't really realize how not good at Sidemount I was. And then I met Ivan, and that opened my eyes quite a lot. I learned obviously a huge amount from him. Then I got certified for my first tech course, and then I jumped on with Andy Campbell and assisted a lot from him, learned a lot from him. He has a very interesting way of teaching, and I learned a lot from that. Sidemount is exactly that. You go around and you take bits of information from this person, this person, this person, and then you finally kind of find your own flow and your own way of doing things. And I remember my first Sidemount course as an instructor, I was terrified. I was terrified about it, but it was a really good course, and I felt confident that I actually finally knew enough to actually share this and to teach it. And of course, every time I teach a course, I learn something new. Like, as you always do with Sidemount, you never know everything, and you'll never ever stop learning. And now I teach quite a lot of Sidemount, and I'm fairly happy and satisfied, like, that I do know what I'm talking about now. But
Yeah.
yeah, I didn't back then. And back then, I say back then, it was what, 3-4 years ago, and I've learned an incredible amount in those 3 or 4 years. But yeah, it was an interesting journey for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's fantastic. And it's always a journey. I mean, no matter where you start and how. And I mean, I think I just have given that I've got this platform and that I am able to observe and also been through a whole lot of experiences, plus to talk to other people about them, especially really good side mount divers. It's always interesting to understand that journey for each person. And for anyone out there who's thinking they'd like to side mount dive, the best thing you can do is go and get a great course. And you want to get a course from someone who dives side mount either all the time or a lot. Doesn't have to be exclusive. In my mind, maybe that's a preference. But if you can find someone who it's a really big part of their diving, then that's going to go a long way towards giving you a good course. And a good location helps too. Where
Absolutely.
you've got good conditions, because there's nothing like trying to be stable when you've got massive swells or surges in the water, and trying to be still. So there is something to be said for a cenote or a calm bay or something. I know in Gozo, again, we had Schweine Bay there. And that was just a fantastic training site that we used all the time for the early dives, because it was so benign and calm, and you had a standing entrance and all of the things that help you learn early on. And then, look, you've just got to go and get a whole lot of side mount dives and find a really good buddy who wants to side mount dive with you and go and put it in the water and keep practicing, because it is something that, as you say, you keep learning. Here's something too. I learned something on a course. I'm teaching a student here. She's amazing, and she was new to a dry suit in New Zealand. Here we dive dry at this time of the year. coming into summer now, it's starting to get warmer and you can dive wet if you want to, but we tend to dive dry most of the year. And she was new to a dry suit and she kept going head down. And she did have the floaty fin tips, where they're not flexing at the ankles. And I didn't notice until I actually demonstrated it to her. I said, look, your fin tips are up and let me show you. And as soon as I pointed my fin tips up, my head went down.
Yes.
And then I thought, why did that happen? I go, my feet have just needled up through the water because I've pointed my fin tips up. So it was just like you always have these little revelations that come along. I've been teaching Sidemount since 2016 now, so quite a while, and done a lot of courses and helped a lot of people get stable. And yet there's still little things. I know not to put my fin tips up, and I know to teach people not to do it. And I was always, why would you not do that? Because if you move your fins, you'll propel forward. But the other reason, especially in a dry suit, is if you do that, your feet are going to come up, gas will come up, and you'll go head down. So it was just, what a revelation, after so many years. So you're always learning something.
Absolutely. And it's one thing I think really set, we've been talking about Koh Tao and how much recreational diving there is around, but I think it's one thing that really sets Koh Tao divers apart from the rest of the shops on the island is like every single instructor in that place, be it teaching tri scubas or open water or whatever, like we are all technical divers and we are all side mount divers. Every time we get a chance, that's what we do. Like with our free time, we put our rebreathers together and we go out and we dive. And that's a really awesome thing in our shop, to be surrounded by all of this. Like we have all the time. We all have slightly different ways of doing things. And, it's something that we can always talk about. My course versus your course versus whatever. And we just we can always watch and we can always discuss, why are you doing that? Like, what?
Yep.
Tell me about this and how does that help you do that? And, it's great. It's a great atmosphere to be in. And
that collaboration is so important. Yeah. It's one of the things I witnessed at ProTech in Mexico too. They've probably taken it to the nth degree, but boy, they are learning off each other all the time. They're practicing with each other. Yeah. They do, everything from practice classroom sessions through to in the water. They're critiquing each other in a positive way and helping each other improve. And so, of course, that lifts the standard all the time. You mentioned sort of tech diving and its crossover to recreational. And, I guess we don't want to be elitist about this, but at the same time, in my mind, there is no doubt that if you are learning recreational diving, open water from someone who is a tech diver, you're going to get a better experience. And I say that with some trepidation because I don't want to put down every recreational instructor in the world with one sweeping statement like that. But it's kind of true, okay, stuff it, I'll say it. Because there's just no doubt that level, you don't want to pass on everything, right? You don't want to overload them. But if you can give them the foundations of buoyancy control, stability, and trim at a very early level, early stage in their diving, they're going to be so much better. And that is the hallmark of technical diving, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. I agree. I remember how much my open water instructing, how my teaching improved. It improved so drastically since I became a technical diver and since I became cave diver and all of this stuff where all of this stuff is so much more important, the trim and buoyancy and propulsion and this stuff. And it then became so ingrained in me that I had to pass it on even to my tri scuba divers, I became such a better instructor since I became a tech diver for exactly that reason. So I 100% agree with you there.
Yeah, and I think in the tech diving community as well, it's kind of a bit abhorrent to us to have people kneeling on the bottom. And so it even is things like teaching an open water course with neutral buoyancy, not relying on kneeling on the bottom to perform skills. It takes a little bit more time to get them started, to get that initial step done. But once you've got that initial step, you can then layer things on. I used an example in the last episode, my good friend, and he was actually my first Sidemount student as well, Dave Pierce. He recently posted from his open water course. Now he's a 100-meter CCR diver. Now he's a full cave diver. He's gone on a long way. So he's done a lot of tech training now. But he's teaching open water, and his open water students are frog kicking, neutral buoyancy, and trim tech diving posture. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So.
They're going to go on to be so much better divers. With that beginning.
And also enjoy themselves more and be safer.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Yeah, so there's no downside to that, just a little bit more work, and maybe there's an extra day on your course because of that, and maybe your course costs a little bit more. But I learned to dive in the early 80s, and we had a great course, but it was different, way different back then. And I do remember having a break after my open water course before I got to do some more dives and being somewhat afraid to go back in the water, even though I'd been in the water my whole life, because I just didn't have everything better than well enough. And so, yeah, I think it's just so important.
Absolutely. Yeah, I 100% agree.
All right, so let's move on. So we talked about side mount diving, side mount instruction a little bit, but you've gone way beyond that. And so now I've seen you on the KISS Sidewinder. I do want to talk about that. You're a cave diver. So tell me about your progression from turning up at Koh Tao. You're already a side mount instructor, but doing some more side mount. And how did that progress on to cave diving and rebreather diving?
Well, yeah, I came into Koh Tao divers and I had zero idea, really. I was very green at the time, like I didn't really know much about anything. And then I met Mikko for the first time in November 21, I think, when he came back to Koh Tao after being in Finland through the pandemic. And I didn't really know who this guy was. I didn't have any idea, really. I knew a little bit about the cave rescue because I'd been training with Ivan, who was, of course, also involved in that. He was up there as well. So I knew a little bit, but I didn't know who this guy was, really. And he just waltzed in one day like, okay, this is the owner of the shop. Great. Nice to meet you. I remember my first impressions were like, wow, this guy is a whirlwind of energy and enthusiasm and craziness. And, like you've spoke to him, you know him, and he's a very passionate guy and his enthusiasm is just infectious.
Yes.
And I was very new to technical diving. I didn't know what really I was doing. I was uncovering some passion, but I didn't really know quite what that was until I started to sit around the table at the end of the day and drink a few beers with Mikko and listen to his stories. He has this whole catalog of tales to tell you about everything that he's done, and each one that he tells is more insane than the last one. And I was just listening to him like, okay, I want to be like this guy. How can I do that? How can I be like this guy? This guy is awesome. This guy is amazing. So he kind of took me under his wing, and I hadn't been at Koh Tao Divers for that long. I was brand new instructor. I was also at the end of my passport life. I think I'd been coming and going from Thailand for many, many years already. And I was like, if I leave the country, they're not going to let me back. So I wasn't really sure what I was going to do. And I remember Mikko saying to me one day, he said, well, what can we do like to make you stay here? Because we got on quite well. I shared his interest and I said, well, I don't know, like, how can we stay here? I need to work here full time. And then I got my work permit that allowed me to stay. And then we started the journey, and he gave me my first test dive on the Sidewinder in 22, I think it was, in like June or July. Actually, I had quite a big health scare then. I unfortunately went through some cancer treatment, and that was literally at this same time when I was doing these tri dives with the Sidewinder at the same time as I was going through this quite horrific time in my life. And I'd actually ordered my Sidewinder. I bought one before I'd even tried it, funnily enough. And then throughout, I had to have like 4 or 5 months out of the water post-surgery and all of this stuff. But I had this Sidewinder just sitting in a box waiting for me there. And he always kind of told me, like, that was a huge amount of trust that you put in me. Like, I ordered my Sidewinder through him, and he got it to the country, and then it was just sat there waiting for me. And then I finally was able to do my Mod 1 in November of 22. I think, and I was one of his first students as well. Like, he was quite a brand new instructor on the unit. I'm not sure if I was his first course or second, but he was still quite fresh as a Sidewinder instructor then. But yeah, I trusted him 100%, and that was it. My course was tricky. It was very challenging. I had 2 guys with me on the course who were fantastic divers, but they had their dry suits and they weren't 100% confident in their dry suits. And I think that added a huge amount of challenge for them. Like, as we know, you need to be 100% in your dry suit before you then put it together with a CCR. Like, buoyancy and trim and everything is infinitely more complicated if you're not 100% in your dry suit. And I was there just in my wetsuit in the 30-degree water, and now I hate to dive my CCR in my wetsuit. I hate it. But back then I was quite happy with that. So I think it just eliminated the challenges of that, and it allowed me to just deal with the complications with buoyancy and everything. But I was happy to be in my wetsuit then. And yeah, it was a challenging course. And then he taught many, many more courses after that. And every time I could, I asked him, like, can I just come and just be there, like in the background, not to do the course or assist, but just to be there and get hours on my unit and to see like his progression as well as an instructor. And it's funny, like I recently assisted him at some point in the future. My goal is to become an instructor also. So I assisted him very recently on a course, and it was fantastic to see like his progression, like comparing it to my course and what I learned, like the way that he's done. He spent many more hours with Patrick and all of this stuff, and he's learned so much as an instructor, and it was great to see like actually how much more confident and awesome he is now as an instructor back then now compared to how he was back then. So
I remember because he joined my course. I can't remember if we mentioned this on mic or off mic, but he joined my course for my Mod 2 training with Patrick, and he was assisting Patrick. And I do remember just before I got there, I saw a video of him doing the timeout drill, which is basically the bailout drill, and it was impressive. I mean, so Mikko was absolutely motionless, did a great job. It was just a little clip of him doing it, and I thought, look, I know him, but I haven't met him in person, nor dive with him at this point. So I thought, I'm looking forward to diving with him. And so he joined me on my first dives, which we went to Ponderosa, and this is the no fins training that you go through at ProTech. So, and I'm in my dry suit. I'm a very proficient dry suit diver, a lot of dry suit dives, but I had to take a lot of undergarments off to go and dive in the cenotes of Mexico compared to here. So I'm in very, very small undergarments and not much weight. And, so everything was a bit different for me. And of course, I ended up being what I would call a shit sandwich for the first attempt at that. It was pretty frustrating. Had a nice swim out there. I was good while I was moving, but once I stopped and took the fins off, things went pear-shaped a little bit. I managed to recover that gracefully the next day with some advice from Jake Bullman and a bit of practice, of course, and changing of my weighting and, just a few changes in my system that I needed to learn from that particular dive. But I was a bit embarrassed, to be honest, because there's Patrick and Mikko's there as well filming, and ended up filming a turtle on the way too. I remember that. But anyhow, that's such is life on a course, and I managed to get better from there. But it was awesome to have him with us, and he joined us in Cenote Angelita, yes, as well, and on the 50-meter dives. So that was cool. And then we went to 60. I don't think he came on those ones. Had a lot of trouble with his dry suit there. I remember his dry suit was absolutely falling apart. He borrowed one and he was duct taping it.
That's pretty classic for him, to be honest.
I know. That was the thing every morning as Mikko was looking for duct tape. So
it's funny you say that.
What a great time, and awesome to hang with him. And he had a lot of beers and a lot of dinners with him too. So I know all the fun behind that. So tell us about your diving Sidewinder now, and of course you mentioned, had you cave trained before the Sidewinder, or did that come after that?
I cave trained before. I did my full cave again with Ivan in 21, I think. Yeah, 21, beginning of 21, I think. So I did all of that. All my cave training was in Thailand. And the thing with Thai caves is they're quite challenging, actually. Like, my overhead experience, to be honest, is still quite limited. And I'm let's say I'm at the beginning kind of my journey in terms of getting all the experience in all different caves around the world. But I did my whole training here in Thailand, and the thing is, they're deep. Like, there's no such thing as, the nice long 6-meter penetrations that you get in, for example, in Sulawesi or in Mexico or any of those places. They're, I say dark, but like the visibility is not so good, silty nightmares, can be strong flow, and they just drop deep. And then I kind of realized why I needed the Sidewinder is, to be honest, when I started the expeditions and exploration stuff with Mikko, when we started to go to these remote locations and getting all of your gear there becomes more complicated.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, well, I don't want to have to think about a compressor. I don't want to have to think about carrying 4 tanks there. Like, I just want to put my Sidewinder on my back and my 2 bailouts, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
So then I had a bit of a difficult time, like to get crossed over. Actually, when I did my mod 1, I was full cave trained and I had mod 1, but Mikko was not able to put them together. He didn't have the right qualifications. He was not able to cross me over. So I said, well, what can I do? Like, I want to do this, but I can't do it here. I said, well, I'm going to go somewhere else then. So I actually outsourced to Klaus Rasmussen.
Yes.
Again, another one that was involved in the cave rescue. I've done a lot of training with him now. I did my CCR crossover, and I also recently did my advanced trimix with him as well. Great guy. And I said, hey, like, I need to get my CCR into the caves, or mines as it was at the time. And then I crossed over then. And that is the best thing I have ever done. To be honest, like, all of the things that I've done now, like all of the opportunities that I've had to assist Mikko, to be with him, doing all these things, is because I made that move. And because I have the rebreather, like, I was able to join him on so many more trips and be the first person in that cave, be the first person in that mine, extending that line because of the rebreather. Like, the open circuit guys, they don't get to do that here.
Yep.
It's the best decision I ever made.
Yeah, and I want to take you into the mine diving in a moment as well. I mean, just reflecting on that for a moment, the header picture on your Facebook page, I looked at it this morning, and there's you and Mikko with empty reels there, just doing exactly what you just described. So that's pretty awesome. So when I've covered mine diving quite a few times, and it is really interesting to me. I've personally never dived a mine, and I seriously want to. That would be reason enough for me to come visit you guys, and so I'm going to try and make that happen sometime. And I've covered mines quite a few times. I remember Michael Thomas in the UK, Scott Argy as well in Scotland. I've talked to many of the Belgian divers about diving mines in Belgium and other parts of Europe. So covered it quite a bit in terms of the differences. But when I talked to Paul, we really got into some great detail about mines, and also the thing called the mine crossover, which I think a lot of the others, I don't know if they're actually doing a mine crossover where there's a specific course, if you like, it's focused on the differences between cave diving and mine diving, because while there's so many similarities, I'm aware that there's a lot of differences as well. Can you give me your perspective on how you see cave diving versus mine diving, and why it might be important to go through that process?
I think the biggest thing in terms of the differences for me is, I mean, obviously it's natural versus man-made, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think mine diving for me is way more interesting in a way because of this. It has this man-made brain kind of behind it, you know. It's infinitely more complicated, I think. Because of this, there's kind of no logic sometimes behind how it is. Caves are formed by, you know, geography or whatever is a natural process. But with mines, sometimes it's, you know, sometimes you see, like, of course, there's this tunnel, there's this driveway that leads to a specific place, but then you go into these chambers and there just doesn't seem to be any logic behind it. There's just these tunnels everywhere and these just holes in the wall, and the navigation it doesn't follow any pattern, and it's insane. And then obviously, like, in terms of the actual diving, like how you lay the line and where the line is and all of this stuff, it is so much more complicated because there's no right way to do it. And you know, when we learn cave diving, we learn how the right way to do this, and the right way to put the line is 1 meter off of the bottom and always on the right side or the left side or whatever. But then the reality of it is, especially in this exploration, when you're laying the line for the first time, it's like, it's impossible. It's impossible to do that. Like, there's no way to do that. And then, you know, the lines that we've laid or Mikko's laid, and realistically, it's kind of this crazy zigzag thing. And because there's no way to do it, there's nothing to tie onto. There's only just this tunnel, and you might see some small rock on the side, but you touch it and it just crumbles. And it's like, well, the options, the tie-off points are way more complicated. And we always say, like, in mine diving, okay, we shouldn't touch or we shouldn't tie on to any of the man-made structures, any of the machinery or anything like that. And that's absolutely true. We should not. But sometimes there's no other option. Yeah. So I think it's fascinating. I really, really enjoy being in that place and seeing some of the history, I guess, like the history in terms of caves and in terms of mines. Like, caves are billions of years old, sure, but mines are like, people have been there working, and you see some of the old things left over, the machinery, the ladders, the things that you see there is really awesome. We have one of these things in Boyai in the South Mine. We have this thing called the electric chair. I think it's some old cart of some kind, but when you swim past it and you have a look, like, it literally looks like some old school electric chair, like from Green Mile movie or something. Like, it's crazy. You're looking at it like, is it actually an electric chair? It really looks like it.
Yeah.
And I think that's super interesting to see. Like, you see all the artifacts and things that have been left behind. And I think that's one thing why I like mine diving so much, is seeing all the history there and uncovering how people used to do it, how people used to work there. And you see these chambers, like, we call it the no-name chamber in Boyai mine. And it's one of the pictures that I have on my Instagram, on my Facebook. And you see the enormity of the place, and you think, like, okay, I'm able to float here because I'm in water, but these guys were somehow mining this place, and the chamber's like 40 meters high and even wider. Like, I don't know how wide it is, but it's huge. It's absolutely huge. And you just think, like, okay, they were mining down there, and then the tunnel, the access tunnel is there. Like, how? It's baffling to me how they managed it. And I think I love to kind of be in those places and kind of think about these things, and like how these people were actually working and doing their jobs here. It's nuts. It's insane.
Yeah. A few things are coming to mind right now, because the last few episodes, 99 with Stefan Panis on the wrecks of Dover Strait, and also my last episode with Holly, we talked a lot about shipwrecks. And there must be a massive crossover between wreck diving and mine diving in terms of this man-made perspective. But then there's these differences too, where the mine, I guess you could liken it to a giant shipwreck, right? It's much, much larger. But then the navigation, and what's coming to my mind right now is, when you think about a ship is designed very, very carefully for personnel to be able to move through the ship in very specific ways. Compartments are laid out in a specific way because of the functionality of the ship. But when you think of a mine, they're chasing ore. They're chasing what they're trying to mine, and that could take them in any number of directions based on the geology. So that's probably why it's like that. They've probably found, let's build a tunnel down there and keep tunneling until that taps out. Oh, that's run out. Let's go and do another one in another direction, or let's turn left, let's turn right. So it's super interesting. What sort of depths are you getting to?
So the current depth that has been explored to is 106. I think Paul was the one to extend that line. Patrick and Mikko pushed it last year down to 90. They were breaking records, like first mine dive, deepest mine dive, la la la.
With a Sidewinder,
yeah. So far, there's in Boyai, in the bigger mine, there's 5 kilometers of line so far laid out in that place, and maximum depth is 106. But the thing keeps going. Like the gyro, the main tunnel, it just is. I don't know how deep it goes, and it's funny. Like, there's supposed to be some blueprints or something of this mine.
That's my question.
And we've spoken to the locals, and apparently there's some blueprint somewhere, but some guy has it somewhere on a piece of paper, and apparently no one really knows where it is. And whether that's true or not, I'm not sure. But we should somewhere have some idea about how deep this thing goes. But apparently that piece of paper is lost or something. I don't know.
Yeah, awesome. Fantastic. And
Thailand.
where is Boyai relative to Koh Tao?
So it's up in Kanchanaburi. So Koh Tao is kind of straight south from Bangkok, straight down in the Gulf, and then northwest from Bangkok is Kanchanaburi. Kanchanaburi is quite a famous place in terms of the where River Kwai, the
Yes,
Death
famous for
Railway.
water. Yep.
Yep, that's where that is. A little bit further north from the main city is where the mines are. So it's a bit of a journey. Like it's like 10-hour driving we get the night boat and then we drive like 10, 11 hours up. It's always a bit of a mission to go up there, but it's 100% worth it, every time. We spend a lot of time driving, a lot of time in the car.
Yeah, awesome.
And where you mentioned before you saw the picture on my Facebook with the 2 empty reels, that was actually even further north, up right by the Myanmar border, and that was like 16 hours of driving just to get there.
Yeah.
All the way up there. And so yeah, it's always a bit of a mission, but it's 100% worth it every time.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, I've got to try and fit this in somehow, so figure out how I can do a mind crossover and come up and have a dive with you guys.
Absolutely.
And I've got so much in my planning at the moment. Of course, we're all waiting for the Sidewinder 2. And I saw you sharing Patrick's post from the In-Depth magazine as well on that. So we're all pretty excited about that. Are you going to be crossing over in Koh Tao? Is that what Mikko's planning, or?
I'm not sure. Like, if it becomes an option, absolutely, 100%. Yeah.
I'm pretty keen.
I'm very excited about it.
Yeah. I love the Sidewinder 1. There's nothing wrong with that rebreather. Well, nothing wrong. It's a great rebreather. Let's put it that way. But boy, the Sidewinder 2 looks so amazing that I just can't wait. So I've got to figure out. In New Zealand here, I think I've got the only Sidewinder, or I'm one of 2. I don't think there's 3 here, and there's a few in Australia now. But for me to find an instructor that I'd want to train with, I think I'd probably either coming to you guys or going back to Mexico or to Ed, or to Europe. Yeah, so there's a few options, but they're all a lot of travel for me. So I've got to make it one of my big trips to go and get crossed over, and then with the Sidewinder 2. The other thing that I've kind of pondered, I'm Mod 2 trained and done a little bit of 60-meter diving now, but the question then is, do I want to go deeper than that? And I've got to get my head around what it is to do the Mod 3 course. How did you find that, the graduation from Mod 2 to Mod 3, so 60-meter to 100-meter trimix?
So I haven't done it on CCR. I've only done open circuit.
Well, you've got too much money.
But no, not anymore. Not anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
It was, yes, I'm actually still hounding Mikko for Mod 2, so maybe he can listen to this and then finally get his act together and teach me Mod 2.
Yeah.
I was supposed to actually go out to Malapascua a few months back to do Mod 2 with Patrick, but some issues happened with my passport and stuff, so I wasn't able to do it. So I'm actually still only Mod 1.
That's a shame.
But, I'm super excited to get to do the Mod 2. Like I said before, I really enjoy being deep, and I did advanced trimix open circuit, and it was super exciting actually. Like, I'm really happy I did it. 100% not going to do a lot of it on open circuit because, as you say, like, it's.
Did you have 5 cylinders or 4?
5.
5.
And I did it on side mount configuration actually. Like.
Yeah. Well, there's no way I would do a back mount. The conditions that you need to be able to dive 5 cylinders side mount, though, it really, it just precludes you from going to some places, because as much as I know that I can boat dive side mount, by the time you get to 5 cylinders, it's starting to get really challenging. And as you well know, putting on 4, I've done that in fairly tricky conditions, but 5, and then getting in and out of the water. So I really, if I am going to do it, it'll definitely be on the Sidewinder. And look, I can highly recommend the Mod 2 course, but my course with Patrick, I'd do it again tomorrow, like, I'm qualified, I'll go back and do it again. It's just so much fun and so challenging and I want to say stressful, but I just love that. I just love, even when you get stuff wrong, it was, the dives in Angelita that we did, and then we went to Kamloops and then did the deeper dives there as well. And so doing the ascents in particular, and Patrick has a ratio deco system that he uses as well. So not only did you have to manage the ascent, but you had to, perform mental calculations for ratio deco at the same time, and which was a lot of fun. To be honest, I haven't practiced that. Hope he's not listening. So I've gone back to using my computers, but it was pretty cool. And just for everyone, the rationale behind that was if you happen, you can always have contingency plans. You went a little bit deeper, you went a little bit longer, but it was really quite impressive how accurate his method, and it's not the common ratio deco method, it's another method. His method of calculating was incredibly accurate and super useful if you happen to miss your plan for whatever reason, needed to stay longer, needed to go deeper. And so, it was a lot of fun. And as I said, a lot of stress and pressure, but I really enjoyed it.
Pressure for sure, yeah.
Yeah. I would cave CCR straight after it. So that, it was a glutton for punishment when you got beaten up again. But again, so much fun. I'd do that again tomorrow as well.
Yeah, I would 100% love to do more training. I've never learned anything. Well, I've never trained with Patrick, but he did come over earlier this year. He was here in April this year, and he had spent some time in Koh Tao divers, and as you know, he's a complete powerhouse of enthusiasm and knowledge and everything, and his energy is overwhelming at sometimes. And I found myself hanging out of the window in Koh Tao divers, he was doing an SRT, single rope technique workshop, and I was just I'm just hanging out of the window with Patrick there, and this is a bizarre experience. And then we went up to the mines. We had this mine camp, and Patrick was there, and that's when he was doing pushing the line a little bit in the mines, and I was for the first time on my CCR in the mines, and it was super exciting that I was there for the first time with my rebreather, and I managed to flood it on the first day.
We've all done it.
Was super anxious and was trying to hide it from everyone. No, nothing, everything's fine. I was running with my rebreather back to my room, to empty it out and recover it and all of that stuff. And then we went on the final day of that mine camp. I went on a dive with Patrick and Mikko and Chris Haslam as well. All the CCRs, we went together, and I was like, okay, I'm going to prove that I'm awesome. And we planned this photo shoot with me as the model, and I have to say it was probably the worst dive of my entire life.
Yeah,
because
can happen.
The stress and pressure was unbelievable. I have these top guys here, and everyone is looking at me, and I had changed my undergarments, and my overpressure valve wasn't working properly on my dry suit, and I'd added a weight, and all of that just caused chaos, and my buoyancy was complete rubbish, and I could not get it under control, and it was awful. And we got to the surface after, and Mikko's going to kill me now for saying this, but the first thing that he said was, Naomi, you have to go to buoyancy school. And I just went, oh God. And Patrick apparently told him off later. He was like, you can't talk to your students like that. You have to encourage them. And Mikko said, no, I can, because that was awful for her. She can do so much better. I know she can do better. And I just went to pieces a little bit, but we've talked about it since, and everything is fine. But that was the worst day of my life ever. I will never forget that day.
We've all been there to greater or lesser degrees. I remember, my most recent, I did the same thing. I don't know how you flooded your rebreather, but I'm getting into Tank Cave in Australia with a whole bunch of people, and I don't know why, but my DSV was open, right? And I'm walking in with it over my back. Just sat down in the pool to put my gear on, put it in, and I probably only had a cup full of water in there, but you're going into a cave. I'm not going into a cave with a flooded rebreather, So I got out, and raced away to replace the sorb. I had to go to another dive center to replace the sorb, and came back, and then nobody wanted to dive on the second dive, so I kind of had to miss out. So that happened to me. And then recently with Darren Mitchell, we were shooting. I've been diving great. I was so pleased with myself and everything. And we were doing episodes. We've been doing this thing called the Trim Police, where we're doing little comedy sketches in Tank Cave. If anyone hasn't seen it, it's on my YouTube and Instagram channel. It's pretty funny. And so I'm the trim police and he's the numpty diver. And of course, I'm supposed to be the primo trim guy. And I think a little bit like you, I had too much weight on, too much gas in the loop. And for the whole dive, I couldn't get my shit together. And we're filming and we're trying to get these primo shots of me in perfect trim and him being a numpty. And it was almost the other way around. I think we captured it okay in the end, just through some very clever editing. But I felt terrible. And so, there's some things you learn. And actually, this is one of the big things for the Pro Tech guys as well, just to reflect on that for a moment, is the reason that they can do this 1 meter motionless and 2 meter motionless fins off stuff is very much about minimum loop volume and minimum weighting. If you don't, like if you're wearing too much weight, and even half a kilo to a kilo of too much weight, you've got to have that much more gas in your dry suit and or buoyancy compensator, and they should be almost empty. And then secondly, if you don't have absolute minimum loop, you've got gas, and some of it's dead gas that you can't get rid of. Just a little bit of change in depth, that gas will expand or contract depending on which way you're going. So you kind of have to suck your loop right down and be breathing comfortably, but no more gas than you need to breathe, and virtually as little as possible in your dry suit and zero in your wing. And then you're set up for success. And so, but if you don't have that point, just a little bit of gas, and you're going to find yourself at 1 meter, 2 meters. And this is where a lot of rebreather divers go wrong, is they're just not correctly weighted, or they can't be because their system's fighting them, a la some of the back mount systems. So yeah, that's my little reflection on that and how that relates to what you've experienced. But that it's a game changer when you get that right.
Yeah, because like when I just said, when I had too much weight, especially in the freshwater, like I dive obviously mostly in the ocean until I go on these trips, and then when you figure it out in the ocean, then it becomes different and complicated when you then switch over to freshwater.
Definitely,
it was one of the things that when I assisted the last course with Mikko, he was focusing a lot more on teaching this. We dive the unit as neutrally buoyant, right?
Yes.
We have our bailouts, and that contributes to our weight. We use those as our weight. And if you have to bail out and empty your tanks, well, then you figure out a different way of keeping yourself underwater. Like, I want to dive 99% of my dives perfectly weighted, right? And the 1% of my dive where I have to bail out and empty my tanks, then I figured that out then. And that's something I've really been trying to fine tune. And I still have a long way to go. Like, I am by no means like perfect, and will never be. I have a dry suit that's slightly too big for me as well. I'm currently waiting on my nice new Seal dry suit made to measure, but currently I have a Santi that's a little bit too big, so I have this much space in my feet, which makes everything infinitely more complicated. And the second you have a little bit too much gas in that suit, and then you accidentally go a little bit too much head down or whatever, then everything goes pear-shaped after that. And then you mix it with too much gas in the loop and and yeah, it's a constant battle. It's important to figure out that minimum gas.
And for anyone listening, like I reflect back on the episode I did with Jake Ballman, because Jake and I spoke about this quite a lot, having been after my experience of Cave CCR and Mod 2 with Patrick. It's a little bit controversial, this minimum weighting thing, because you are relying on the gas weight, and if you have to bail out and use that gas weight, then you are going to be too buoyant. No doubt, there's up to 4 kilos of gas there that you might use. Hopefully you don't use all of it, but you're going to use some of it. But it wasn't, in the cave scenario, one of the things I did do a couple of times on the course, because I was so low light weighting, let's call it, is you pick up a rock and just tuck a rock in if you needed something. Jake's solution was, well, if you've bailed out, you can always flood your rebreather.
Flood the unit.
Yeah, exactly. And then that makes the unit heavy. And of course, that's heresy to some people. But with the Sidewinder, flooding it isn't such a big deal. You flood it. So yes, you've got to empty the sorb out, but you've got your cells there. You dry your cells, wash them with fresh water, dry them out, and they'll be fine, or replace them. But obviously flooding in fresh versus salt may be a little bit different, but there are certainly things to think about there in terms of options. Funnily enough, on one of my dives after my course in monkey dust, I did have a bailout. It was just almost ridiculous. I was only wearing one computer and it failed. So I no longer knew my PPO2. I could have driven semi-close, I guess, but I had so much bailout gas to LE80s of bailout. So I did the 45-minute swim back out on the two LE80s, but the average depth of that dive was 5-6 meters. So I used 20 bar or 30 bar out of each cylinder. So it really didn't affect my buoyancy at all. And it was super comfortable. That was the other thing. I mean, this is what I love about the Sidewinder was, when you bail out, you're back to your happy place. It's, you're not bailing out to something that's kind of, I'm not used to this. You just go straight back to side mount. And so I was pretty happy to carry on with the dive and just carry on in side mount. I hadn't used very much of my gas. We could have carried on and I had plenty of gas because we were diving with an open circuit guide. Of course, it didn't go that way, but in my mind, it could have. So yeah, lots of positives there, and an interesting thing that's minimum weighting. So I'm sure we'll hear more about that in the future. Well, we've gone really well. I'm not just trying to think if I had anything else I wanted to ask you, and I think the only other thing is, Koh Tao, an amazing place, and I haven't been there, and I seriously want to. So for someone wanting to come to Koh Tao, how do you get there? What's the best time of the year to come? What sort of diving can we do there?
Best time of year, not now. Now is pretty rough. Like we mentioned already about the weather right now is very tricky around this time. It's super, super hot at March, April time, like 40 degrees hot, but the conditions generally are pretty nice. And the good thing about Koh Tao really is that we only have these 2 weeks of the year really where diving is super tricky. There's no on and off season really. Like, of course, we have better conditions at some times in the year. Visibility goes up and down. We can dive all year round, and the conditions generally, they don't change that much. It's a recreational diver's paradise, really. It's fantastic for learning. It's not the best diving in the world. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say, like, you're going to see the most amazing coral reefs and the most amazing marine life, because it's not true. Like, it's not anything like the Red Sea or anything like that. But in terms of how the conditions are for beginners, it's fantastic. We have beautiful bays for shallow diving, even snorkeling. But then we can also go out and do deeper stuff. We have a fair few shipwrecks around the island that are great for, entry-level technical diving. The max depth really you can get to around the island is like 50, 55. And that is like an hour or an hour and a half by boat out. And we have a few wrecks around the island for that. It's a super nice place to learn how to scuba dive, and that's why I came here. I came to learn here, and then I became an instructor of that. And my bread and butter still is teaching recreational scuba diving, even though I've taught a lot of tech recently, and that's fantastic. Like, that's where I'm aiming to go. I've been teaching a lot of entry-level tech and cavern actually as well. That's where I really enjoy learning how to teach cavern. Has been fantastic. Like, it's made my cave diving better, because you see all the mistakes that people make. I learned so much from teaching that.
And I assume a great place to learn sidemount diving as well.
Absolutely, yeah. And like, one of the things we've been talking about is like the convenience of sidemount and how easy or not it is to get into the water. And one of the best things about Koh Tao divers is we are beachfront, and we have this, you can just cross the street and walk into the water, and you can then just swim a little bit and get easily 7 meters, which is perfect for, your side mount confined
training
water.
Depth.
It's a great depth to learn. It's a great depth for the CCR as well. We know how difficult it is and challenging it is to be in this shallow water, and that's what we have right on our doorstep. And Mikko always just dives straight out from the shop, and we have this speedboat, and if he needs depth, we just get dropped off by the speedboat and picked up an hour later. And it's fantastic. It's super convenient, super easy. Of course, it has its challenges with the weather. Like, sometimes we can't go straight from the shop. The waves are too big or whatever.
But that's just normal shore diving though, right? And I'm assuming the après, you mentioned the partying before. I'm assuming the après diving, as I describe it, is pretty good.
Yeah. In Koh Tao divers as well, like, we just have this super awesome kind of culture. I mean, it's of course Finnish culture. I don't know how much people know about Finnish culture, but they're pretty good beer drinkers.
Indeed.
So yeah, it's always a nice culture to just sit there. Like, we sit after the day and have solid debriefing and everything like this, but there's always a beer in the hand, and that just is a really nice culture. And then of course, like for the partiers, there's a big party scene now on Koh Tao as well. Lots of nice parties here, but yeah, the Koh Tao divers culture is very much just a more quiet one, the Finnish way, you know, sitting around the table, just having a few quiet drinks, and sometimes turns into a few more drinks and whatever. But yeah, no, it's a really nice island. It's a nice place. It's small, but I'm not done with it yet. I'm not bored with it yet, and I'm pretty happy. I'm pretty set up, you know, with where I am, with who I'm surrounded by. Like, you know, I dive with Mikko on a regular basis, and that's fantastic. I learn every day by being around him, by being around all the instructors that I've said. Like, you know, I mentioned already, everyone there is a technical diver, a cave diver, CCR diver. So we just sit at the end of the day talking about our open water courses, but then, you know, there's always this just chat about this, that, and the other, and all of that stuff. So yeah, it's a fantastic environment to be in, and I would recommend anyone that's interested in starting diving, or starting Sidemount diving, or starting CCR or tech, like, I think it's a fantastic place to be.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Naomi, for giving me your time. I know you've got a power cut coming up soon I'm sure, to restore some of the services for the island there. So we're counting down to that. And I really appreciate you giving us your time and sharing your experiences, both in Sidemount and also with the tech training you've done, and now onto becoming a mine explorer and emptying reels and mines in Thailand there. So as I said, I'd love to join you guys sometime, and we'll try and make that happen. I know my wife went to Bangkok with my daughter earlier this year and absolutely loved it. So I don't think it's going to be too hard to get a group or some of us to come there. So thanks again for your time, and thanks for sharing.
No, thanks so much for having me on. It's been great. And whenever you figure out that time, like, we'd love to have you here, and we'll organize some trip up to Boyai, and you'll just be completely stunned by by the beauty and the enormity of it. It makes you feel very small, for sure, that place. Yeah, we'd love to have you here.
Thank you so much. You've been listening to Speaking Sidemount from www.sidemountpros.com. If you like the podcast and would like to support the show, then why not become a patron of Speaking Sidemount? For as little as $5 per month, you can become a part of the Speaking Sidemount team, get exclusive early access to all of the episodes, and help us to deliver the very best Sidemount, cave, and technical dive content available. Just go to www.patreon.com/speakingsidemount for all of the details. The address is also on our Facebook page, listed in the podcast notes. Thanks again, and we look forward to you joining us for our next episode of Speaking Sidemount.